word from our lawyers. You're being filmed at all times, not just right now, but when you came here today. On the bus, on the train, on the car, on a bike, you were being filmed while you walk down the street. You're being filmed right now by LCB security cameras. Your phone listens to you, your phone tracks you, your TV probably listens to you and films you. We're filming you right now. Thank you for your continued cooperation. Is that okay? Here at Trump Toys, our product line explores the many factors that go into the creation of Atrocity, beginning and ending with the dangerous and pernicious notion that you are the good guy. Do you think you're the good guy? Maybe. Do you think you're a good guy?
In general? Yes.
That's the wrong answer.
I try and live by that.
No comment, my friend.
No comment. That's probably a good answer. Tim?
No comment then.
Okay.
Pleading the fifth.
Obviously, I'm one of the good guys.
That's a bad start.
I don't think anything at the moment.
Okay.
I hope so.
You hope so?
Yeah.
That's the wrong answer.
Well, it depends who you talk to.
That's the best answer we've had so far. We're asking people to ask themselves who decides who the good guys are, who decides who the bad guys are, and by what metric are we making that decision. To be as impartial as possible, here at Trump Toys, statistics, not nationalist rhetoric, flags and historical jingoism inform everything that we do. So finally, a cautionary note from one of our main contributors, Joseph Stalin. One death is a tragedy, but a million a mere statistic. So with that in mind, let's play. I have the Russian famine of 1921 to 22. The Russian famine of 1921-22 was a severe famine which killed an estimated 5 million, primarily affecting the Volga-Ural regions, caused by the combined effects of economic disturbances of World War I, the Russian Revolution and the Civil War, and a policy of war communism. So, highest estimate of deaths, I've got 10 million. Can anybody beat 10 million? And what are your cards?
Bifarian blockade, I've got 3 million.
Okay.
I've got the Chinese Civil War crimes and 3.5 million.
Okay.
I've got the Arab slave trade of Africans, and that's 4,600,000.
Yeah, I win. The Biafran blockade in Nigeria.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
I didn't remember that. I didn't know anything about it until I did these
Did you
cards.
not?
No.
One of the first charity concerts. George Harrison, concert for Bangladesh. My dad bought the triple LP.
Wow.
Sold billions around the world. John Pilger, Claim to Flame. We were always Guardian and Observer family,
Right.
and they covered it extensively, and it was shocking, absolutely appalling. It's the first dark malnutrition images of starving African babies.
Yeah.
Obviously malnutrition goes back millennia. They declared independence from Nigeria, or seceded from Nigeria, and Nigeria said no way.
Yeah, so they just started.
They started out, and they lost a big star.
Wow.
But it would be like Gaza is at the moment in terms of if you're on the right side of history, like I was always, as you know, you'd have been on the side of the Afghans and so on. When I was in primary school, our primary school had 2-volume illustrated battlefields of the American Civil War from start to finish, with beautiful diagrams and drawings and all the rest of it. And you can buy books of battlefields. You don't get many set in Africa.
No.
The wars that are currently happening, Katanga rarely features.
Did you learn anything about the Opium Wars? Did you learn about the British Raj? It's not like, what? We did good things, right?
Yeah. Bengal famine. Waiting for the Bengal famine. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Churchill's in there.
On a similar note, Winston Churchill.
Oh.
4 million.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So he knew what he was doing, and he's quoted as saying that Indians are a beastly people and they breed like rabbits. So he didn't feel.
That's a national hero.
Yeah, innit? Yeah. So,
Wow.
not so popular in Ireland, India,
No.
or South Wales.
No.
Anywhere else in the world.
Disease caused by smoking, 90 million. That's a lot.
Okay, this is one of the big boys of the pack. This is Joseph Stalin, everybody. Famines, purges, labour camps, population transfers, deportations, NKVD massacres. The minimum death toll uses the minimum post-archive calculations after the fall of the Soviet Empire. So, Joe Stalin, Uncle Joe, highest estimate of death, 22 million. Anybody?
Winston Churchill, 4 million.
Oh, Joe beats Winston.
Soviet Afghan homicide, I've got 2 million.
2 million.
Soviet famine, 10 million.
There's a lot of Soviet famines in here. I want to say that now. There's quite a few Soviet
Are we
families.
meant to laugh? Whilst
Yeah, that's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're supposed to laugh.
You know, these are just statistics. They're not tragedies anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Stalin said.
It's all back to front. Anyway, counter-revolutionaries. This is a good one. The campaign to suppress counter-revolutionaries is a campaign launched against in the People's Republic of China designed to eradicate opposition elements. I'm going to go with the atrocity began in 1950.
Expulsion of the Germans after the World War II, 1945.
Yeah, 3 million people, was it, killed after the war ended?
I've got the Great Irish Famine, and it began in 1846.
The non-Jewish Holocaust. Okay, non-Jews were targeted for extermination as part of the larger Holocaust event involving persecution and murder of other groups, including the Roma, incurably sick, ethnic Poles, other Slavs, Soviet citizens, Soviet prisoners of war, political opponents, gay men, and Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm going to go with 5 million people killed.
I got Genghis Khan.
Mao. The collective works of Mao.
What sort of death count we on?
I thought you put 70 million, isn't it?
Mao is big. Mao did not.
I think it's top.
I thought
He is the top individual.
I've got side effects of Japanese imperialism with 14,936,000, I thought.
Pol Pot. Geometric mean average 2.5 million.
11,499,565,
What?
the Atlantic slave trade.
Oh, that is a big card.
It's still the case. It's still the case.
Hello.
Yeah, I know. I was watching a documentary on Newsnight the other night about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's slave trade.
They were shutting down the Facebook pages that are actually, they call them mates, maid swapping services, and they're just young African girls that have just been imported and kept in the house.
Right. Yeah.
And they actually went to a house and picked one up and just shook the guy's hand, paid the money, and then released her afterwards. He said, "Wow, this is incredible." But it's going on here, right? You know, these Vietnamese kids are being brought here. They're not being brought here for education at Eton. They're working off a massive debt for the rest of their lives in a nail bar.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the fun.
Yes.
I got a bigger card. I love Hitler. 18,564,944.
Number 2 in the list.
He was a good egg.
He was a busy boy. Your cards.
It's hard not to read whilst you're playing, to read about each one. And
The Great Purge in the Soviet Union, 2 years.
I have all famine under the British Raj. This is quite a big card. Between 12 and 29 million Indians died of starvation while India was under the British Raj. Millions of tons of wheat were exported to Britain as famines raged. So, I'm going to go for the period of time in which this atrocity took place. It took place over 190 years.
I've got slavery in French colonial Africa.
Okay.
And my number is 40 years.
Ooh, Winston Churchill.
Bring it on.
Yeah, Churchill. His decision to divert rice and food to British troops ultimately helped cause the massive death toll, together with scorched earth response to the Japanese occupation of Burma. There is no accounting here made for other possible crimes, including the firebombing of civilians. So this is just deaths of Indians caused by the stroke of a pen. Highest estimate of deaths, 4 million.
I've got Arab slave trade of Africans. High estimate of deaths, is that what we're on?
Yeah.
4,600,000?
I've got the Great Cultural Revolution.
Damn.
10 million.
Yeah.
I grew up revering Chairman Mao.
Wow. Just before my time a little bit, yeah.
My mum was Australian.
Right.
So no Japanese stuff in the house at all, because it came very close, bombed Darwin and all of that. And her brother was in the Australian forces, and what they did was drop 2 men and a radio on islands across the Pacific, and he was an amateur botanist, so he had a great time. He was just recording all the flora and fauna on this island. He left 3 children, died of cancer, as did about 90% of the men in his unit, and they were all downwind of Hiroshima and Nagasaki plume across the Pacific.
Wow.
And it took until his widow retired that she was finally able to be accepted as that was a military death, and she was entitled to a widow's pension or widow's pension from the moment that she made the claim, like 2 years previously, as opposed to 1952. So China good, socialist China, capitalist Japan bad, in Mum's eyes, and that sort of filtered through. And it was all about, America, Russia, the Cold War stuff, and in our house, the poverty in China and the rise out of it. It's really, plays with the head, doesn't it, really?
Indigenous people of the Americas.
Forget it. Forget it. Do you want me to give you some advice?
I've got two really strong ones.
Do you want me to give you some advice?
Let him decide.
I'm not going to. It's obvious which one's the best one. Well,
based on the last one, high estimate of deaths, 138 million.
Well, it's still going on. Well, I mean, if you think of the Australian Aboriginals as well, there's still, well, I mean, some awful things have happened in recent years, but when you think of the effects of drug and alcohol abuse that's still affecting them.
Quite big. It's quite big. Okay, Indonesian mass killings, 3 million.
Counter-revolutionaries, 2 million.
Hirohito, 14 million.
And I just say that the indigenous peoples of the Americas was 504-year period.
Yeah, that's more.
And while you look at the weakest number on that card is 1492, because it's a long time ago. When you add the 504 years to that, that's 1996 that ended.
Russian famine of 1921 to 22. High estimate of deaths, 10 million.
In 1 year.
That's a year. Oh my God.
There's a hacker genocide on here, and it's 1 month. And it's 1 million people. Wow. And that's in the 1800s, so it's pre-mechanization. So it's not like they had a hacker genocide. Yeah. It's Chinese cultural thing.
This data exists presented like this.
Yeah.
Hacker genocide.
A hacker genocide. Yeah, it was an ethnic grouping who sided with the wrong group in an overthrowing of the palace.
What you got,
and they were just murdered.
I have hacker genocide.
The General Plan Ost, or OST. High estimate of deaths, 40 million.
40.
Yeah. Master Plan for the East was a Nazi Germany government's plan for the genocide and ethnic cleansing on a vast scale and colonisation of Central and Eastern Europe by Germans.
I don't know what words to use, so I win that round.
Yeah, I'm getting way too excited about that.
This is a good game, man.
What does it mean?
I like this. In a, twisted kind of way. One more hand. Come on, one more hand.
Come on, James.
I actually, at the beginning, was thinking I'm not winning, and now I'm addicted. I don't like it. It feels heavier. Heavier and heavier.
I have under Soviet-Afghan politicide, which is obviously different from genocide because of political reasons. And the geometric mean estimate is just 1 million.
Just 1 million. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I've got the Chinese Civil War crimes. During the war, both nationalists and communists carried out mass atrocities with millions of non-combatants deliberately killed by both sides. And the geometric mean estimate is 2.5 million plus a bit of change.
I'm still winning.
You get this.
Mine's slavery in French colonial Africa.
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah, there weren't enough.
No,
there weren't enough really. I'm sorry, there's only 1.6 million people.
Still a little bit lazy by the French. Okay, right, I might lose this one. This is the Khmer Rouge killing fields, and I'm going to give you a chance by saying the low estimate is 1.386 million. I could have gone with the year, because the year was quite recent, but I feel as I'm probably...
I think I've got you guys on this one.
Which one did you go for? Sorry,
the lowest estimate of deaths. The very top one.
That's quite a broad...
Well, this is the interesting thing. So where there's a broad disparity between the low and the high, it shows that it's contentious to a certain degree. Some people argue that these are the numbers, others argue. There are some where the numbers are the same all the way down because they've got actual hardcore people who kept records.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the hacker genocide, and both the low and high is exactly 1 million.
Exactly 1 million, yeah.
And
the interesting one there is that it's 1 million in 1 month.
Oh.
1 month.
In 1 month, 30,000 people a day, roughly, I think.
Oh my God.
And that's pre-mechanisation, so that's all arm and shoulder work.
Oh, pure machete.
Getting their backs into it.
That's a lot of thrusting and my arm saying, think of it.
That's like a football stadium.
Yeah, basically.
People a day.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's Leicester City
football stadium is 30,000.
every day, day after day for a month. Wheel them in, move them out.
Dude,
Yeah.
I think I might have beaten you here.
Okay.
For European enslavement by the Ottomans, the lowest estimate of deaths is 10.5 million.
Jesus Christ. But that's over 550 years.
It is, but in 1450, the population of the planet
wouldn't have been,
would have
been
been barely a billion.
And what these cards don't account for is population at those moments, because
like percentage of the population that were involved.
Genghis Khan doesn't kill as many as Stalin and others, but when Genghis Khan killed them, he killed 10% of the known world. Whereas Joseph Stalin, it's just more people. So very difficult to track the percentages of population. Which card do you have?
It's pathetic. It's the Great Cultural Revolution.
I've never heard the Great Cultural Revolution described as pathetic. Pathetic.
Well, yeah, it's like 400,000. Although it could be said that 10 is that 10 million?
10 million, yeah.
But we don't talk about that number. What
I think the Chinese
the party line is.
400,000.
Yeah.
So you got that number from their official website.
I got Auschwitz. What is a high estimate? 1.5 million.
Yeah. Because it's only one camp.
So in which countries?
Just one camp.
What would that have been? Which countries?
That would be places like Poland,
Hungary,
and any of the Slavic nations where the General Plan Ost had pushed Germans into colonise during the war. So the civilians were then left as the armies retreated.
And explains Angela Merkel's response to Syria and the refugee crisis. Because Germans have been refugees.
It's interesting though with the ones where you've named just individuals like Hitler, because obviously there had to be a movement behind them of people to do that.
The Congo horrors. This is kind of the card that established the reason for making this game, which was I looked at who the world's worst dictators were. And then I thought, well, that's too broad. Who killed the most people? And this guy's name popped up in the top 5. I thought, who the hell is that?
Right.
And just didn't realise. I knew it was, because within cultural output, Heart of Darkness. All this sort of stuff.
Yes.
I get this thing. It's cloudy. It's out.
Yes.
Leopold II.
Oh Christ! Yeah. No.
13 million.
Yeah.
And the only person to ever have a colony taken off him by the international powers.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, the only thing that resonates with me is the Arab stuff. The Arab slavery and this is that I touched on. As an Indian heritage guy, you still to this day, you get people that wanted to go to Saudi Arabia just to do some work. They take the passports off them. They're literally enslaved in this current climate. This is happening. They're there for 2 years, 3 years, no contact with their family. And this is for me as part of the slave trade process. We're building massive buildings, so it doesn't really matter.
I mean, slavery. You don't have to be clubbed on the head, put on a boat and chains anymore. The world's more sophisticated.
I think that's quite a big thing for me. Has been how this thing. I grew up in the 60s when we sorted all this out. We decolonised the world. We gave away the British Empire. Everybody was liberated. We were on the good guys' side, etc., etc., etc. And also we sorted out slavery. We did that. That William Wilberforce did that. And now we've got this 4 million modern slavery. What's on earth? No, that can't be true. And then you start digging, and you just go, I don't know whether I want to look any further. But you're right. That those poor people on that lorry this month and the lot before, and the cockle pickers of Morecambe Bay and all of that.
Mine's the Biafran blockade, which sounds horrendous.
Yeah, it was apparently.
Which is 3 million. Lack of medicine and famine.
Within living memory.
The Young Turks, 9 years.
What's that?
Yeah, I don't know what that is because I only know Young Turks from the YouTube channel.
It's really a record label.
Fucking stupid.
The Young Turks Holocaust is a collective term to refer to the various genocides and ethnic cleansings of the Ottoman Empire committed under the administration of the Young Turks. So Armenian genocide, the Assyrian genocide, and the Great Famine of Lebanon.
all famine under the British were like 190 years.
Oh.
The British know how to stick to the cause.
Jesus.
Armenian genocide.
They like their traditions.
4 years.
Listen, when we do something, we do it properly, we do it for a long time.
Oh, I'm sorry that never happened.
Yes. Yeah, you can't play that card, it doesn't exist.
I think you'll find that's not real. I've got the Rwanda genocide.
Otherwise?
She does, yes.
She does, but if the Kardashians are saying it, then
it's just
It's
just statistics.
It was very educational.
There was many there I didn't really know of, and you really think the German relocation, because when they're in a faraway place, not knowing it feels, I don't know.
And there's no sympathy given to losers either in history. So the German relocation bit is just like, well, you lost. Who cares? But they're still women and children.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault.
Yeah. Things like Winston Churchill, I knew obviously some decisions he made, but when you look at the actual stats and compare that to
Hitler,
concentration camps.
We all know Hitler's a bad guy, clearly, 22 million people. But which is the number where you tip over into the bad guy? Is it the one which is the tragedy, or is it the million plus?
And it makes you wonder in other cultures how different that would be, how different our good guys will be seen as bad guys, and similarly in other cultures as well, they'll be like, they're holding somebody up.
There was a guy on, was it with Piers Morgan or was it just on Sky News, where he was like a young guy who was doing his doctorate in history or something, and he was making the point about Churchill, about, he did some really bad things, and we obviously, most of the world holds him up as this big hero, and I can't remember whether it was Piers Morgan but the newsreader got really offended by this, by just being told an inconvenient truth. And how you can't say that? It's like, well, I can, because it's fucking true, and it is the fucking
numbers.
statistic.
Even the low estimate is in the millions. It's not, this thing happened.
And it's like you say, history's written by the winners, and
and also by people with a political voice. It's very contentious area. I don't want to step on people's toes, but so there's 2 Holocaust cards in that. One's the non-Jewish Holocaust, one's the Jewish Holocaust, and everybody knows the Jewish Holocaust, and rightfully so. But the non-Jewish Holocaust is a couple of million less. It's like 4 million or 5.5 million. The 2 different cards. Now, to me, wow, both cards. But the non-Jewish Holocaust, unless you're a certain education, unless you're socially engaged, most people go, what? Gay men and Freemasons and Jehovah's Witnesses and disabled people, what? It's 4.5 million people.
Yeah.
But they don't have a voice because they're not a collective.
No.
It has a political representation.
Yeah. That's a lot of different groups.
It's strange as well how, I don't know, you see a lot more gay people, disabled people, in your actual, you don't see people's Jewishness necessarily, or their religion. It isn't as apparent, but it's strange how the Jewish Holocaust is.
Well, you'd have to be more vocal about it, wouldn't you? And also as a sort of persecuted people who are potentially living in communities, whereas disabled people don't live in communities, do they really necessarily?
And the only other community kind of that had an ethnicity to it that was the non-Jewish Holocaust was Gypsies in Roma, and by their very transient nature, and they don't have that same voice.
You don't have the power.
History and immediate political power.
And there's no politicians and teachers and
standing
doctors.
up for them.
Yeah. And I suppose.
So the disenfranchised don't get represented here at all.
And I suppose the Jewish people have a long history of being persecuted.
I feel really good about humanity.
I'm going.
Well, the good thing is that we have this data available now. That's the thing. People diss the internet and stuff like this, but actually, for the first time in humanity's history, the human race's history, we've got this thing, the internet,
got access to it,
that actually shines a light on ourselves or reflects an image back at ourselves that is the truthful image to a degree. There's a lot of shit in there, don't get me wrong. But what we're struggling is, and this is Brexit and everything else, is the first time we've seen that image flash back to us, and most of us don't like what we see, which is why the British are rejecting Europe, rejecting Florence, because they're seeing themselves reflected, and it's not as pretty as they thought. It's not the flag-waving Churchill 66 Bobby, World Cup winning story.
Like Empire was a good thing.
Yeah, so actually I think over our lifetimes we'll see this like the monkey looking into the reflection for the first time and attacking it, turn into, actually this is quite curious, actually we can learn and we'll move on, and it'll be a force for good, because the statistics are being held up as opposed to flags, which is emotional rather than analytical. There is hope, therefore, but this is the turning point.
But
this is the difficult first reflection.
Yeah. In the smashed mirror as well.
God.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and make my complete dystopian installation to replace this one. So, yeah.
That's what I said at the meeting. Keep it light, guys. Keep it light.
Just very quickly, so the definition that we use for atrocity employed in this game is as follows: genocide, ethnic cleansing, mass ethnic religious persecution, political purges, repressions, politicised, forced labour, slavery, abuse of workers, slave trades, war crimes, ancient atrocities, actions of individual leaders, anthropologically exacerbated famines and disease outbreaks. There are other historical atrocities other than those contained within the pack, but we have employed a minimum threshold and geometric mean estimate of 1 million deaths, which has in some cases produced categories such as categories such as human sacrifice, ritual suicide, riots, political unrest, prisons, concentration camps and extermination camps, with the notable exception of Auschwitz, also covered here by the non-Jewish Holocaust, the Jewish Holocaust, Hitler and other related atrocities. War and armed conflicts in and of themselves are not counted here, and neither are the multiple historical conflicts within China completely covered, which estimated between 110 to 240 million deaths alone. Please keep this in mind while playing the game, and nearly all the statistics we have used are based on estimates of estimates, but you have to start somewhere.